The UHS Liberty drifted through the dark void of the Vega sector, like a piece of space junk that someone had forgotten to collect. Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge and watched the stars through the main view screen while his coffee grew cold in his hands. The ship looked nothing like the sleek vessels that other species flew across the galaxy. Its hull was dented and patched with different metals that created an ugly rainbow of browns and grays across its surface. Lisa Martinez sat at the navigation station and checked their position for the third time in 10 minutes. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease even though worry lines creased her forehead. The Liberty had been exploring this sector for 2 weeks without finding anything more interesting than empty space and dead rocks floating around distant suns. The mission briefings back on Earth had promised them adventure and discovery, but so far they had found only Silence Tony. Blake leaned back in his chair at the weapons console and tried to look bored, even though his eyes never stopped scanning the sensor readings. The weapons specialist had joined this crew because he wanted to see action against hostile aliens. But the most dangerous thing they had encountered was a small asteroid that came too close to their flight path. He adjusted the settings on his console for the 100th time that day, and wondered if they would ever find anything worth shooting at. Amy Watson crawled out from under the engineering console with grease stains on her uniform and a satisfied smile on her face. The chief engineer had spent the morning fixing a power coupling that should have been replaced 3 months ago, but the Liberty made do with spare parts and creative solutions. She wiped her hands on a dirty rag and glanced at the energy readings that would have confused most engineers in the galaxy. Everything looked normal, which meant their secret was still safe. Ryan Parker sat at the communications station and monitored dozens of radio frequencies from across the sector. Most of the chatter came from merchant ships and mining operations, but occasionally he picked up military transmissions from species that considered this region their territory. The communications officer had learned to speak 7 alien languages during his training, but he hoped they would never need to use those skills in an actual diplomatic crisis. The peaceful routine of their exploration mission ended when Lisa Martinez straightened up in her chair and stared at her sensor display. Her voice cut through the quiet hum of the bridge systems like a knife through silk. "Captain, I am detecting multiple ships approaching our position at high speed." Jake Harrison set down his coffee and moved to stand behind her station. The sensor screen showed 12 red dots moving toward them in a perfect formation that could only mean military vessels. Each dot represented a ship that was easily 3 times larger than the Liberty, and their energy signatures indicated weapon systems that could vaporize a small moon. "How long until they reach us?" 6 minutes at current speed, Lisa replied while her fingers danced across the controls to gather more information about their unexpected visitors. "They are broadcasting identification signals that match Zephyrian military codes. It looks like we just found the local welcoming committee. The Zephyrians had controlled this sector of space for over 200 years, and they did not appreciate uninvited guests. Their ships were works of art that combined deadly efficiency with crystalline beauty that made other species feel primitive and crude by comparison. Each vessel contained enough firepower to destroy entire cities, and their crews had never known defeat in battle. Against any enemy, Tony Blake felt his pulse quicken as he activated the Liberty's weapon systems and ran through his mental checklist of combat procedures. The weapons console came alive with displays and readouts that would have impressed any military engineer if they had been allowed to see them. "Shall I charge the primary weapons, Captain?" "Not yet," Jake replied while he studied the approaching formation on the main view screen. "Let us see what they want before we do anything that might be considered hostile. Ryan, open a communication channel and see if they feel like talking." The communications officer adjusted his equipment and sent out a standard first contact greeting in the Zephyrian language. The response came back immediately in perfect English, which meant they had been studying humanity longer than most people realized. The voice that filled the bridge belonged to someone who was used to being obeyed without question. "Human vessel, you are trespassing in Zephyrian territory without permission or proper authorization. I am Admiral Crixtal, commander of the 3rd Battle Fleet, and I order you to prepare for immediate boarding and inspection of your primitive craft." The main view screen flickered and showed the interior of the Zephyrian flagship bridge. Admiral Crixtal stood in the center of the room, surrounded by control panels that glowed with soft blue light. The alien commander was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished silver and eyes that glowed with an inner fire that spoke of centuries of conquest and domination. "Your ship, Appears to be constructed from scrap metal and salvaged parts. The Admiral continued while his crew laughed at what they considered a clever insult. Did your species build this vessel in some primitive orbital junkyard? Or did you steal it from a museum of ancient spacecraft? More laughter echoed from the Zephyrian bridge as other aliens joined in the mockery of human engineering. They had faced dozens of species over the centuries, and none had ever posed a serious challenge to their technological superiority. The humans appeared to be no different from all the other primitive races that had tried to explore space with inferior equipment and limited understanding of advanced physics. Jake Harrison kept his expression neutral while he listened to the alien insults. His crew remained at their stations, but he could see the tension in their shoulders and the way their hands hovered near their control panels. They had trained for this moment, but none of them had expected their first contact with hostile aliens to begin with such obvious contempt. Admiral Crickstal, the captain, replied in a calm voice that gave no hint of the anger building inside his chest. The UHS Liberty is a peaceful exploration vessel from Earth. We did not realize this sector was under Zephyrian control, and we apologize for any misunderstanding about territorial boundaries. The alien admiral leaned forward and his glowing eyes narrowed with predatory satisfaction. Your apology is noted, human, but it does not change the fact that you have violated our space with your pathetic excuse for a starship. You have 1 standard hour to surrender your vessel and prepare for transportation to our nearest detention facility. Resistance will result in the immediate destruction of your ship and the death of your entire crew. The communication channel filled with more alien voices as other ships in the fleet added their own threats and insults. They spoke of humans as if they were talking about insects that had wandered into the wrong garden. The Zephyrians had never encountered a species that could challenge their military might, and they saw no reason to treat these newcomers with anything resembling respect. 1 hour, Admiral Crickstal repeated while his image faded from the view screen. Use that time wisely, humans. It may be the last hour of your lives. The bridge fell silent after Admiral Crickstal ended the communication. Jake Harrison turned away from the view screen and looked at his crew, who were all staring at him with questions in their eyes. They knew this moment would come eventually, but none of them had expected it to happen so soon or with such overwhelming odds against them. Dr. Kevin Chen emerged from the science lab and walked onto the bridge, while carrying a data tablet filled with readings that would have confused most scientists in the galaxy. The chief scientist was a small man with gray hair and gentle eyes, but his mind contained secrets that could change the balance of power between entire civilizations. He had spent 20 years working on projects that officially did not exist. Captain, the Zephyrian ships are positioning themselves in a standard attack formation, he said while glancing at the tactical display. Their weapon signatures match our intelligence reports about their plasma cannon arrays and quantum torpedo launchers. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy a small city. Lisa Martinez checked her navigation sensors and shook her head with frustration. There is no way we can outrun them in normal space. Their ships are faster than anything in our fleet, and they have us surrounded on all sides. Even if we could break through their formation, we would not get far before they caught us again. Amy Watson looked up from her engineering console and smiled in a way that made her look much younger than her 40 years. The chief engineer had been working with dimensional technology for so long that she sometimes forgot other people could not see the universe the way she did. Captain, should I begin charging the Cascade reactor? Jake Harrison nodded and watched as his engineer began activating systems that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. The Liberty looked like an old cargo ship on the outside, but its interior contained technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics. 20 years of secret research had created something that no alien species would recognize as a threat until it was too late. Dr. Kevin Chen sat down at an empty console and began calling up files that contained the history of humanity's greatest scientific achievement. Let me explain what we are really dealing with here, he said while data scrolled across his screen. The Zephyrians have been the dominant military power in this region for over 2 centuries. They have conquered 47 different species and absorbed their technology into their own weapons and defenses. The scientist touched his tablet and the main view screen showed a recording from Earth's archives. The video displayed the first successful, dimensional breach that had been achieved in a laboratory. Deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Chen had been present that day when humanity had opened a window into a parallel universe and seen their own world from an impossible Most species focus on building bigger weapons and stronger shields, he continued while the recording showed energy, readings that spiked beyond normal measurement scales. They think in terms of more power and better armor, but they never question the basic assumptions about how warfare works. Humans decided to approach the problem from a completely different direction. Tony Blake leaned forward in his chair and watched the archived footage of the first-dimensional weapon test. A small projectile had been fired into what appeared to be empty space, but the target on the other side of the laboratory had been destroyed by an impact that came from an impossible angle. The weapon had traveled through a parallel dimension, where the barrier between firing point and target did not exist. We spent years learning how to access alternate versions of reality, Dr. Chen explained while more test footage played on the screen. Each dimension is slightly different from our own, but the physical laws remain consistent across all of them. A ship that exists in one dimension can fire weapons from another dimension and strike targets from angles that should be impossible. Amy Watson finished her startup sequence and the Liberty began to hum with power that came from 11 different universes. The dimensional cascade reactor drew energy from parallel versions of space, where the same ship existed in slightly different positions. Each reality contributed its power to create a system that generated more energy than any conventional reactor could. The Zephyrians build their tactics around three-dimensional warfare, the engineer said while monitoring energy flows that defied traditional physics. Their shields are designed to deflect attacks that come from normal space angles, but they have never encountered weapons that can strike from other dimensions. Their armor is strong against conventional projectiles, but it cannot stop something that phases through from a parallel reality. Ryan Parker monitored the alien communication channels and reported that the Zephyrian fleet was becoming more confident as the deadline approached. Their captains were joking about how they would divide up the salvage from the human ship and discussing which museums might want to display pieces of primitive Earth technology. None of them showed any concern about facing a single vessel with such a small crew. Lisa Martinez ran calculations on her navigation computer and found something that made her smile for the first time since the aliens had appeared. Captain, the Zephyrian formation has a weakness. They are positioned to prevent us from escaping, but they have not considered the possibility that we might attack them instead. Their flagship is exposed if we approach from the right angle. Jake Harrison walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each member of his crew. They had trained together for 3 years and learned to operate equipment that most people could not even imagine. The Liberty represented humanity's first attempt to build a warship that could fight in multiple dimensions at the same time. And these 5 people were the only ones qualified to use it in actual combat. How long? Until the weapons are fully charged, he asked while watching the countdown timer that showed less than 30 minutes remaining until the Zephyrian deadline. The alien ships had moved closer, and their weapon arrays were glowing with contained energy that could reduce the Liberty to scattered atoms in seconds. 15 minutes for basic systems, Tony Blake reported while running through his pre-combat checklist. Full power will be available in 25 minutes, but we can engage targets with reduced firepower if necessary. The dimensional targeting array is already online and tracking all 12 enemy vessels. Dr. Chen looked up from his console and met the captain's eyes. The Zephyrians have never encountered dimensional warfare technology. Their tactical computers will not be able to track weapons fire that originates from parallel universes. We will have complete surprise for the first few minutes of engagement. Then we wait, Jake Harrison said while settling into his command chair. Let them think they have won before the fighting even begins. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemy underestimate you until the moment you prove them wrong. The countdown timer on the bridge reached 0, and Admiral Crickstall appeared on the main view screen with a satisfied expression on his silver face. Behind him, the Zephyrian bridge crew prepared their weapons for what they expected to be a quick and easy victory over the primitive human ship. Their confidence filled the communication channel like poison spreading through clean water. Your time is up, humans, the alien commander announced while his fleet moved into final attack positions around the Liberty. You have chosen to resist our generous offer of surrender, so now you will face the consequences of your foolish pride. Prepare to witness the power of the Zephyrian Third Battle Fleet. Jake Harrison stood up from his command chair and straightened his uniform while looking directly into the alien admiral's glowing eyes. His voice remained calm and steady even though his heart was beating fast enough to power a small generator. Admiral, we appreciate your concern for our safety, but humanity must respectfully decline your offer. The Zephyrian ships opened fire without warning and filled the space around the Liberty with enough destructive energy to vaporize a medium-sized asteroid. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes converged on the human vessel from 12 different angles while the alien crews watched their displays for confirmation of the kill. They expected to see nothing but scattered debris and glowing gases where the Liberty had been floating. Instead, they saw something that made their tactical computers display error messages and confused their sensor operators beyond all understanding. The human ship flickered like a candle flame in a strong wind, and the devastating barrage of weapons fire passed through empty space without hitting anything solid. The Liberty appeared to exist and not exist at the same time while the alien attack struck nothing but vacuum. Amy Watson monitored the dimensional phase shift from her engineering console and smiled as the ship's hull oscillated between multiple realities. The Liberty had moved into a parallel dimension where the Zephyrian weapons existed but their target did not. The alien energy beams traveled through space that looked identical to their own reality but contained no human ship to destroy. Phase shift complete, she reported while the ship stabilized in its new dimensional position. We are now existing primarily in Dimension 7, with secondary presence in Dimensions 3 and 11. The Zephyrian weapons cannot reach us while we remain in this configuration. Tony Blake felt his pulse quicken as he activated the Liberty's weapon systems for the first time in actual combat. The weapons console came alive with displays that showed targeting information from 12 different dimensions simultaneously. His training had prepared him for this moment, but seeing it happen for real was still incredible. Primary weapons charged and ready, Captain, he announced while his fingers hovered over the firing controls. All 12-dimensional targeting arrays are locked onto enemy vessels and waiting for your command. We have clean shots on their flagship and 6 escort ships. Dr. Kevin Chen watched the dimensional cascade reactor reach full power and marveled at how smoothly the system operated under combat conditions. 20 years of theoretical work had led to this moment when humanity would reveal its true capabilities to a galaxy that had underestimated them. The scientist felt proud and terrified at the same time. The Zephyrians are trying to recalibrate their sensors, Ryan Parker reported while monitoring alien communication channels. Their ship captains are reporting weapon malfunctions and targeting system failures. They cannot understand why their attacks did not destroy us. Admiral Crixtal appeared on the view screen again, but his confident expression had been replaced by confusion and growing anger. Behind him, Zephyrian officers ran between control panels and shouted orders in their musical language while trying to understand what had gone wrong with their perfect attack. Human ship, respond immediately. Our sensors show you were destroyed, but you are still transmitting. Explain this deception. Jake Harrison looked at his crew and saw the determination in their faces that had carried them through 3 years of training for this mission. They were ready to show the galaxy that humanity had evolved beyond the primitive species that other races expected them to remain forever. Tony, you may fire when ready. The weapons specialist pressed his firing control and watched as the Liberty's dimensional artillery array came online for the first time in actual combat. The ship's hull transformed as hidden panels slid away to reveal crystalline structures that pulsed with energy drawn from 11 parallel universes. The weapons existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and could strike targets from angles that conventional physics said were impossible. The first salvo emerged from empty space around the Zephyrian flagship like lightning bolts, materializing from a clear sky. Energy beams struck Admiral Crixtal's ship from 12 different dimensional positions at exactly the same moment while the alien shields tried desperately to deflect attacks that came from directions their designers had never considered possible. The flagship's crystalline hull cracked under impossible stresses as weapons fire phased through its armor from parallel dimensions where the protective barriers did not exist. Explosions bloomed across its surface while internal systems overloaded from energy that bypassed every defensive system the Zephyrians had ever developed. Direct hits on Target 1, Tony Blake reported while preparing his next attack sequence. Their shields are failing because they cannot deflect weapons that strike from multiple dimensions simultaneously. Loading second salvo now. Admiral Crixtal's image flickered on the view screen as his ship's communication system struggled to maintain contact through the cascade of system failures. His silver face showed the first traces of fear that his crew had ever seen from their commander. Impossible. No species possesses weapons that can strike from non-existent attack vectors. Our computers show your weapon fire originating from empty space. The second wave of dimensional artillery struck 3 more Zephyrian ships, while their crews tried to understand how they were being attacked by an enemy they could not see or target. The Liberty existed in 12 dimensions at once and fired from optimal positions in each reality while remaining safely out of reach in spaces where the alien weapons could not follow. The enemy formation is breaking apart, Lisa Martinez reported from her navigation station. 6 ships are attempting to retreat, while the others are trying to surround us, but their tactical computers cannot track our position accurately. They are firing at shadows and empty coordinates. Dr. Kevin Chen watched the battle unfold and felt a mixture of pride and sadness as humanity revealed the fruits of their secret research. The Zephyrians had ruled through superior firepower for centuries, but they had never imagined that another species might learn to fight from entirely different planes of existence. Captain, the remaining ships are requesting immediate surrender terms. Jake Harrison looked at the tactical display and saw a fleet that had entered the battle with absolute confidence now scattered and burning in the dark void of space. The Liberty had proven that innovation mattered more than raw power, but victory brought responsibilities that weighed heavily on his shoulders. News of the impossible battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, through quantum communication networks that connected every civilized world. Species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for generations watched the recorded footage with disbelief and growing hope. The images showed weapons fire emerging from empty space and a single human ship existing in multiple locations at the same time. On the bridge of the Liberty, Jake Harrison studied the tactical display that showed the scattered remains of what had once been the most feared fleet in this sector of space. Half of the Zephyrian ships were drifting powerless through space with their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. The other half had retreated to a safe distance where their crews tried to understand what had happened to their invincible weapons admiral. Crickstal appeared on the main view screen, and his silver face showed emotions that his crew had never seen before. Fear mixed with confusion while his glowing eyes darted between his control panels and the human ship that had destroyed his fleet with impossible weapons. Behind him, Zephyrian officers worked frantically to repair systems that had been damaged by attacks from dimensions their science could not explain. Human Commander, I demand an explanation for your use of prohibited weapons technology, the alien admiral said, while his voice shook with barely controlled anger. No species in this galaxy possesses the ability to fire energy beams from non-existent locations. You have violated every treaty and convention that governs civilized warfare. Dr. Kevin Chen stepped forward and activated his communication console to broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship and monitoring station in the sector could hear his words. The scientist had spent decades preparing for this moment, when humanity would reveal their greatest achievement to a galaxy that had always underestimated them. Admiral Crickstal and all listening species, this is Dr. Kevin Chen, Chief Scientist of the UHS Liberty, he began while data streamed across his display. What you have witnessed is not prohibited technology, but rather the practical application of dimensional physics that your science has not yet discovered. Humanity has learned to access parallel universes and fight from multiple realities simultaneously. The communication channel filled with voices from dozens of different species as the news spread to every corner of known space. Trading vessels and military ships alike broadcast messages of shock and amazement while their crews tried to process the implications of what they had just learned. The humans had not simply built better weapons, but had fundamentally changed how warfare could be conducted. Lisa Martinez monitored the flood of incoming transmissions and sorted them by priority, while her console displayed messages from governments and military commanders across the galaxy. Every major power wanted to establish immediate diplomatic contact with the species that had just redefined the possible scope of military technology. Captain, we are receiving surrender requests from all remaining Zephyrian ships, she reported while more communication channels opened. Admiral Crickstal is asking for terms and several of his captains are requesting permission to abandon their vessels. The entire third battle fleet is effectively neutralized. Tony Blake kept his weapons trained on the surviving alien ships while he monitored their energy signatures for any sign of renewed hostility. The Zephyrian crews had stopped trying to target the Liberty, and their weapon systems showed only minimal power levels. The dimensional demonstration had broken their will to fight more completely than any conventional victory could have achieved. There, tactical computers are still trying to analyze our attack patterns, he reported while studying the alien sensor sweeps. Every ship is running continuous scans, but they cannot detect our weapons even when we are not firing them. As far as their instruments can tell, we attacked them with invisible forces that do not exist in normal space. Amy Watson adjusted the dimensional cascade reactor to maintain their position across multiple realities, while conserving power for whatever came next. The Liberty existed primarily in Dimension 7, but maintained smaller presences in 5 other parallel universes that allowed them to observe and act from impossible angles. "Captain, should I bring us back to normal space?" she asked while monitoring the energy flows that kept them partially phased out of standard reality. "We can maintain this configuration for several more hours, but returning to Dimension 1 would make communication easier with conventional ships." Jake Harrison considered their options while watching the tactical display that showed dozens of new contacts approaching their position. Word of the battle had reached other species, and they were sending representatives to witness humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Some of the approaching ships belonged to races that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians for centuries. "Bring us back to normal space, but keep all systems ready for immediate dimensional shift if necessary," he ordered, while preparing to address the growing crowd of alien observers. Dr. Chen opened a channel to all ships in the sector. "It is time to explain what humanity has learned and what we plan to do with this knowledge." The main view screen showed dozens of different alien faces as representatives from multiple species joined the communication channel. Some looked hopeful, while others appeared frightened by the implications of humanity's technological breakthrough. All of them waited to hear what the humans planned to do with weapons that could strike from other dimensions. Dr. Kevin Chen activated the ship's recording system to preserve this moment for history while he began to speak. "Fellow beings of the galaxy, humanity greets you not as conquerors but as explorers who have discovered new frontiers of scientific knowledge. For 20 years we have studied the mathematical foundations of parallel universe access and learned to apply these principles to practical engineering problems." The scientists displayed holographic models that showed how dimensional barriers could be crossed and how energy could be transmitted between parallel realities. The alien observers watched with fascination and growing understanding as he explained concepts that their own scientists had dismissed as impossible theoretical speculation. "We do not seek to dominate other species or expand human territory through military conquest," Dr. Chen continued while the holographic display showed peaceful applications of dimensional technology. "Our goal is to explore regions of space that can only be reached through interdimensional travel and to share our discoveries with civilizations that approach us in friendship." Admiral Krickstall interrupted the broadcast with a voice that trembled with the realization that his empire's foundation had crumbled in the span of a single battle. "If humans possess such overwhelming technological superiority, why do you offer mercy to those who threatened you? Your weapons could destroy every ship in this sector within minutes." Jake Harrison stepped forward to answer the question that would determine how the galaxy viewed humanity's emergence as a major power. His response would echo across thousands of worlds and shape diplomatic relations for generations to come. Jake Harrison looked directly into Admiral Krickstall's glowing eyes through the communication channel, while dozens of alien species listened to every word he spoke. The question about human mercy hung in the space between them like a bridge that could either connect two civilizations or collapse into endless war. His answer would determine whether humanity became another conquering empire or something entirely different. "Admiral Krickstall, we offer mercy because true strength is not measured by the ability to destroy, but by the wisdom to choose restraint," the captain replied while his crew watched the alien faces on their screens. "Humanity has learned that the most advanced civilizations are those that use their power to protect rather than to conquer. We could destroy your fleet, but doing so would make us no better than the tyrants we oppose." The Zephyrian commander stared in disbelief at the human who had just defeated his entire battle fleet and then offered to spare the survivors. In 2 centuries of conquest, Admiral Krickstall had never encountered an enemy that possessed overwhelming superiority, yet chose not to use it. The concept challenged everything he understood about how advanced species behaved toward their defeated opponent's doctor. Kevin Chen activated another display that showed the Liberty's dimensional reactor, powering down from combat levels to standard operation mode. The holographic readout demonstrated that humanity was choosing to de-escalate the situation even though they maintained the ability to destroy every ship in the sector within minutes. Our dimensional technology opens doorways to regions of space that no species has ever explored, the scientist explained while his data streams reached monitoring stations across the galaxy. We have detected signs of ancient civilizations and mysterious energy sources in parallel dimensions that could benefit all intelligent life. Humanity prefers to investigate these discoveries with allies rather than subjects, Lisa Martinez received confirmation that news of the battle had reached the major galactic powers, and their responses were already beginning to arrive. The Centauri Federation wanted to establish immediate trade agreements, while the Andromedan Council requested detailed information about dimensional physics. 3 different species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians were declaring their independence and asking for human protection. Captain, we have incoming messages from 47 different governments, she reported while sorting the communications by priority and urgency. Most are requesting diplomatic contact, but 12 species are offering military alliances against the Zephyrian Empire. The balance of power in this region has shifted completely in the last hour. Tony Blake kept his weapons powered, but not targeted, while he monitored the energy signatures of every ship in the area. The demonstration of human restraint was having a visible effect on the alien crews who had expected to witness either their own destruction or a new reign of terror. Instead, they were watching something that had never happened in recorded galactic history. The remaining Zephyrian ships are standing down from combat alert, he reported while studying his sensor displays. Their weapon systems are powering down, and several captains are requesting permission to approach under flags of truce. I think they want to surrender formally rather than just retreat. Amy Watson brought the Liberty back to normal dimensional space while maintaining the ability to phase shift at a moment's notice. The engineering systems hummed with contained power that could access 11 parallel universes, but the ship appeared completely normal to conventional sensors. The secret of human dimensional technology remained hidden beneath an exterior that still looked like salvaged scrap metal. Ryan Parker translated the flood of alien communications and found patterns that revealed how quickly the political landscape was changing. Species that had feared the Zephyrians for generations were suddenly confident enough to challenge their oppressors, while former allies were distancing themselves from what appeared to be a failing empire. Admiral Krixtal is receiving messages from his own government ordering him to negotiate a ceasefire, the communications officer reported while monitoring Zephyrian military channels. 3 subject species have declared independence in the last 20 minutes, and their home fleet is being recalled to defend core territory. The 3rd battle fleet has been abandoned by its own empire. The main view screen showed Admiral Krixtal sitting alone on his damaged bridge while his officers waited for orders that would never come. The proud commander who had entered this battle with absolute confidence now faced the collapse of everything he had spent his life defending. His silver face reflected the glow of warning lights from systems that would never work properly again. Captain Harrison, the alien admiral said while his voice carried the weight of centuries of defeat. My government has ordered me to negotiate terms with your species for the withdrawal of Zephyrian forces from this sector. They no longer consider this region worth defending against enemies who possess dimensional warfare technology. Jake Harrison felt the responsibility of representing his entire species in negotiations that would affect billions of lives across dozens of worlds. Humanity had achieved a victory that would be remembered for thousands of years, but the true test would be what they chose to do with that achievement. Admiral, we accept your request for negotiations, he replied, while signaling for Dr. Chen to prepare detailed proposals for post-conflict arrangements. However, humanity insists that any agreement must include the immediate freedom of all species currently under Zephyrian occupation. We will not negotiate the continued enslavement of innocent civilizations. The communication channel filled with cheers and celebration as the formerly enslaved species realized that their liberation was becoming a condition of peace rather than a distant hope. Worlds that had been occupied for centuries suddenly saw the possibility of independence backed by the most advanced military technology in known space. Dr. Kevin Chen began broadcasting the technical specifications for basic dimensional physics to every ship and monitoring station in the sector. The information was carefully selected to demonstrate human knowledge without revealing the specific details needed to build weapon systems. Humanity wanted to share their discoveries, but not their ability to wage interdimensional warfare. We are establishing the Dimensional Research Institute as a joint venture between Earth and any species that wishes to participate in peaceful exploration of parallel universes, the scientist announced, while his data streams reached eager alien scientists. Our goal is to unlock the secrets of the multiverse through cooperation rather than conquest. Lisa Martinez plotted a course toward the edge of known space, where dimensional barriers were thinner and interdimensional travel became easier. The IQ, Liberty would continue its original mission of exploration, but now it would be leading a convoy of allied ships from dozens of different species who wanted to see what lay beyond the boundaries of normal reality. The Zephyrian Empire began to crumble. As subject worlds declared independence and former allies switched sides to join the growing alliance around humanity, Admiral Krickstahl formally surrendered his fleet and requested asylum on Earth, where he hoped to study the dimensional technology that had defeated him so completely. Jake Harrison looked at his crew and realized that their small exploration mission had accidentally started a revolution that would reshape the entire galaxy. They had proven that innovation mattered more than brute force, and that the strongest civilizations were those that chose to build rather than destroy. The mockery they had endured at the beginning of this encounter now seemed like the last gasp of an obsolete way of thinking. The UHS Liberty turned toward unexplored space with a fleet of Allied vessels following in its wake, while the galaxy began to imagine possibilities that had never existed before. Humanity learned to fight from 12 dimensions at once.